Okay, this is our day 10 video. It's for Tuesday, April 7th. We're just going to continue on working with radical equations and show you a couple little examples, a couple tricks, and that should be it for today. So just a quick refresher, we'll start with a pretty basic one here. And first thing we're going to do, remember our steps, we're going to isolate the radical. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So that gives me 2 square root of x minus 1 is equal to negative 2. Divide by 2, square root of x minus 1 is equal to negative 1. Now at this point, I can write my final answer to this, which is no solution, because I'm taking the square root of something here, and it's going to equal a negative 1. Well, that cannot be. So you can immediately go to no solution. If you miss that, which is fine, it can happen, you're going to square both sides. So that's going to give me x minus 1 over here is equal to, and I square this, it's going to give me 1. So x equals 2. And if I put 2 in here, 2 minus 1 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1 times 2 is 2 plus 3. Well, 3 does not equal 1. So therefore, that's why we would get no solution. Okay, now one that does work. 2 times the square root of 2x minus 2 minus 3 is equal to 5. So we're going to add the 3 over. And that's going to give me 8. Divide by 2. And you're going to get a 4. And now we need to square both sides. So I get 2x minus 2 is equal to 16. Again, now we're going to isolate the x. So 2x is equal to 18 because I'm adding that 2 to both sides. So x is equal to 9. Do not stop there. Take this 9, go back up here. 2 times 9 is 18. 18 minus 2 is 16. The square root of 16 is 4. Times this 2 is 8. And minus 3 gives me 5. So that does check. That's a good solution. So that's a quick review of what we did yesterday, along with this guy here, which if it equals a negative, only when the radical is isolated, the square root is isolated, then you can write no solution. All right, the more difficult ones are the ones with the quadratic in it. So what I'm talking about is x minus 6 is equal to the square root of 18 minus 3x. Radical's already isolated. I'm ready to go ahead and square both sides. So remember, squaring a binomial is foiling. So I'm going to have to write as x minus 6 times x minus 6. So x squared, my inners and outers will give me a negative 6 and negative 6. So it's a negative 12x plus 36 is equal to 18 minus 3x. So we have our quadratic equation, which means we need to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 3x to both sides. So adding a 3x to a negative 12x gives me a minus 9x. And if I subtract 18 from 36, that's going to give me 18. And that is equal to 0. Now I need to look for 2 factors of 18 that add to 9. Well, that would be 6 and 3. And they both have to be negative. So my 2 possible solutions are x is equal to 6 and x is equal to 3. We need to check both of them back into the original equation of x minus 6. So if I take the first one here, 6 minus 6, that's going to give me a 0 on the left side. And now we're going to take 3 times 6. Well, that's 18. So 18 minus 18 is 0, and the square root of 0 is 0. So that one does check. So x equals 6 is good. Let's do 3 minus 6. That's a negative 3. Well, looking at that, that's supposed to equal the square root of something. So I don't care what I get in here. When I take the square root of it, I'm never going to get a negative 3. So that's not a solution. So the only solution to this equation is x is equal to 6. All right, one more like that. So we got 4 plus the square root of negative 3x plus 10 is equal to x. All right, before I need to square both sides, I've got to subtract 4 from both sides. So it's the square root of negative 3x plus 10 that 10's under the radical, is equal to x minus 4. Ready to go ahead and square. So squaring that radical is just going to give me negative 3x plus 10 equals square this binomial, so it's x minus 4 times x minus 4, x squared minus 8x plus 16. Since it's quadratic, we're going to go ahead and set it equal to 0. I'm going to add 3x to negative 8x, negative 5x, and I'm going to subtract 10 from 16. That's a negative 6. So I'm looking for factors of 6 that give me a difference of 5. Well, that's going to be 1 and 6. 3 and 2, but that's not a sum. That's not what I'm looking for. So it's going to be a plus 1 here and a minus 6. That gives me negative 5x for my inners and outers. So two possible solutions are x equals negative 1 and x equals 6. Substitute into the original equation. Check this negative 1. If I have a negative 1 over here, that doesn't eliminate this from being an answer. Well, it sure does, because if I subtract 4 from a negative 1, it's still negative, and a radical will never equal a negative. All right, let's put a 6 in here. So if I put a 6 in, the right-hand side is 6. Over here is going to be 4 plus. Now we got to put 6 in here. Negative 3x, so that's negative 3, that's negative 18. Negative 18 plus 10, that's going to equal a negative 8. Well, the square root of a negative number is imaginary, and there's no way that that's going to equal a 6. So that's not an answer either. So this one is no solution. All right, I only have one more example for you for today, and it's dealing with not a square root. We're going to go ahead and do a radical equation. It's got a cube root in it, and absolutely nothing is different in the process. It's just the difference properties of a square root and a cube root. So if I got a cube root of, let's say, 9x equals negative 3, I can't say no solution here, because if I take the cube root of negative 8, that equals negative 2, because a negative 2 cubed is equal to negative 8. So I can take the odd index of negative numbers. I just can't take the odd index of even numbers. Isolate the radical. Well, it is. I'm going to raise it to the proper power. So I'm going to cube both sides. So cubing a cube root undoes it, so I get 9x. Now remember, negative 3 cubed, that's going to be a negative 27. Divide both sides by 9. X is equal to negative 3. We need to check that. So cube root of 9 times a negative 3, that's negative 27. Cube root of negative 27 is negative 3, and that's what it's supposed to equal, and it checks. All right, guys, check out Google Classroom. I'll have more problems for you there, and don't hesitate to ask me any questions.